Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of Second Samuel. Today we're in Second Samuel chapter 1, and here David is going to learn of Saul's demise and his son Jonathan's demise as well. And there are a number of interesting things that are discussed in this first chapter, so let's take a few minutes and break some of them down. The first one is in the report that is going to be brought from the Amalekite who's going to come from the battle. It is stated here in 2 Samuel chapter 1 that he is going to be a man from Saul's camp, and that as such he is going to have this knowledge of what it is that happened in the battle. Now, as you go through and read this, if you don't remember what is stated in 1 Samuel 31, then you get a bit of the wrong idea of the information that is being brought. Because David is not going to get the full story. He's not even going to get the correct story in its entirety. But rather, he is going to get a version of the story that is intended to get this messenger ingratiated to David. This man is going to come to David. His clothes are torn. There's dust on his head. He's going to come and he's going to say that he has escaped from the camp of Israel, verse 3. He is going to tell him that the people have fled from the battle, that many of the people have fallen dead, and Saul and Jonathan have as well. And when David asks what happens, the man tells him that Saul asked him to kill him in the midst of the battle, that Saul was wounded. He was leaning on his spear, and he asks this Amalekite, this man, to kill him, and so he does. And so he takes responsibility for ending the life of Saul. Now, if you go back to 1 Samuel chapter 31, what you find is that Saul and his armor bearer are together, and Saul is wounded. And Saul begs his armor bearer to kill him, and he won't. And so Saul falls on his own sword, and then the Amalekite, in response, is going to do the same thing. Saul did not die by the hands of this man. Saul was not killed by the hands of this man. And so this man is bringing this information to David, and he's trying to bring himself up. The indication seems to be that he is hopeful that David will reward him because he knows of the long history between Saul and David, and that David has been hunted by Saul. He is going to puff himself up before David. He is going to embellish. Now, the fact that Saul and Jonathan are dead is absolutely true. The fact that it happened on Mount Gilboa is absolutely true. The fact that the people are scattered and that the army of Israel is running and in hiding and all of those things are true. But he embellishes one particular point, and that embellishment eventually is going to cost him his life because David believes him. And so here you have this tale that is being told. And you see the things that are going to take place. David is going to mourn. His men are going to mourn. And it's not going to be this immediate throw him out and kill him. It's going to be after he's had time to think about and to set his mind over the things that have been done, that he is going to have this man executed for saying that he killed the Lord's anointed. Very interesting dynamics that are taking place here. But it certainly gives us a lesson on when we report things of the dangers of puffing ourselves up, of trying to make ourselves more important than we are, or more a part of things than we are. Those can have very serious ramifications for us. Not just if we're caught in a lie, but sometimes if we're believed. David never accused this man of lying to him. As a matter of fact, the consequences that came about were because he believed him. So that's the first thing that I note in 2 Samuel chapter 1. The second thing is in the statements that are made in verses 17 and 18 with this song of the bow. It is stated that David is then going to teach his men, he's going to teach the children of Judah this song of the bow, which is what we have from verse 19 through the end of the chapter, that this is going to be a song that is going to be delivered to them. And the main theme of that song is this phrase, how the mighty have fallen. It's going to be utilized 3 different times over the course of this song. And you know, it's a phrase that we're very familiar with. It's a phrase that gets utilized quite a bit in literature and in a number of different settings as far as that goes. It is almost a cliched term, and yet it originally comes from Scripture. It comes from the Song of the Bow here in 2 Samuel chapter 1. Most people don't know that that's where the quotation actually comes from, or where it originally came from. But David is going to use that, but he's not just going to use it in reference to Jonathan. He's going to use it in reference to Saul. When you go back and you look at all of the history of everything that happens between David and Saul over the last 10 plus years of their lives before Saul's death, and then you look at the song that David pens for Saul and for Jonathan, you realize the level of respect that David still had for the Lord's anointed. David never had any animosity toward Saul, not in life nor in death. David was constantly trying to get Saul to see, I'm not your enemy. And David also refused to allow Saul's actions to force him to be his enemy. There is something to be said for someone who refuses to become the enemy of someone, even when they are being pushed into a corner, even when they are being prodded. The whole mentality of I have no choice doesn't work. Because David is proof positive you have a choice. You always have a choice. You can't choose what everybody else is going to do, but you can choose how you respond to it. The third thing I want to mention here in 2 Samuel chapter 1 is the relationship between Jonathan and David. And the way that David describes it here, you know, there are a number of people who have gone through and they have tried to make this relationship into something that it wasn't. They have tried to turn this relationship into some form of a sexual relationship between Jonathan and David. And yet when you look at what David says here in 2 Samuel chapter 1, what you find is that he completely states the opposite of that particular mentality. Here in 2 Samuel 1, in this song that he is teaching to his people to sing about Saul and Jonathan, he says concerning Jonathan in verse number 26, he says, I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. The word there that he uses for brother is the word for family. That Jonathan is his own family. And that he has seen him as family. Now, there is a sense in which they were family because Jonathan's sister was going to have been given to David as his wife for a period of time before Saul took her back and gave her to somebody else. But at the same time, they grew as close as brothers together. They watched out for one another like brothers. They took care of one another like brothers. And that was the relationship that David saw. He describes it, he continues to say, for you have been very pleasant to me, your love to me was wonderful. The word there for wonderful is amazing. It is from a Hebrew word that means to inspire awe or to be amazing. And so this is something that would be unexpected. Remember how Jonathan stood up for him before his father, even would have his father seek to take his own life on one occasion because he was willing to stand up for David. Because he was willing to be there for David. He was willing to help David. What Jonathan did and the way that he showed his love for David was amazing. But then you have the statement at the end of verse number 27, which is maybe the most interesting in the involvement of this statement. He says it surpassed the love of women, which means the idea of surpassing means to go beyond or to even get further than. And this the idea of the love of women is the that that sexual relationship, that sexual component. He says this is something that is not that. It goes beyond that kind of a mentality, that kind of a love. This is something that is different than that kind of a relationship. This is a relationship of brotherhood. This is a relationship of standing up for one another, of taking care of one another, of being there for one another, even when one's own family is trying to destroy everything. The relationship between David and Jonathan wasn't sexual, and the propensity that we have in our day and time to make every kind of an affectionate relationship to become somehow a sexual relationship is not only ridiculous, it's dangerous. Because it says that the only way that you can love a person is to have this intimate relationship of a sexual nature with them. Folks, that's just not true. And it never has been true. David and Jonathan illustrate the depth of a relationship that individuals can have when they truly care about one another. And when they truly are willing to go to extreme lengths to watch out for one another, to watch one another's back, when they truly form a brotherhood of family that is not blood related, but is kinship related. And that's one of the lessons we need to learn from 2 Samuel chapter 1. These are some of the things that I found. I hope that they are useful to you. I hope that they help you. And next time we will come back and we will begin looking at 2 Samuel chapter 2. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day.